Great news. There's a quick way you can save money. Switch to Geico. Geico could help you get great coverage at a great price. And it only takes 15 minutes to see if you could save 15% or more on car insurance. Go to geico.com today and see how much you could save.
This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I'm Stephen A.
Dan Graca sitting in for Stephen A. for the next couple of hours here on the one and only 98.7 ESPN New York. You know the phone number. It's 800-919-3776. A lot to get to over these next couple of hours. We'll take it right up until the Michael K. Show. The guys will slide in the chair coming up at 3. We got the Mets in action coming up here any moment from down in D.C. and a big test for the Metropolitans, right? Kind of a nice early season gauge. No knock on the Cardinals. No knock on the Philadelphia Phillies. But, hey, you're taking on a team that everybody and their mother picked to win the National League East in the Washington Nationals, right? They're sending Steven Strasburg to the mound. It's their home opener. This is a perfect opportunity for the Mets to serve notice to the rest of baseball that, you know what, we're back, we're healthy, and we are every bit as much a contender for this division championship, and we're not just going to roll over to the Washington Nationals. So really, this will be a fun game today. You got a great pitching matchup with Steven Strasburg against Jacob deGrom. Michael Conforto is back in the lineup today for the Mets, and that really just weighs and carries so much positive. Aside from the fact that you just see him physically in the lineup at the top of the order. I mean, just think about the road back for Michael Conforto. When he went down with that shoulder injury last summer, I guess it was in August, right? I mean, you thought the absolute worst. To see the guy just crumble like that in the midst of an all-star season, homegrown player, first-round draft pick, you know, a guy that if you're a Met fan, you really just latch onto and embrace him as one of your own, you know, the great hope, if you will. And then with all the uncertainty as to how much time he's going to miss, when will we see him back in the lineup? And then the Mets sent that deadline, or they sent that projection out there of May 1st that Conforto will probably get back in there. And you say to yourself, well, this is the Mets, right? You can never take the Mets at their word when it comes to injuries because it's all the Mets are hurt, always. So when you hear May 1st, you think July 1st or August 1st, if you want to be cynical about it. So the fact that we're sitting here on April the 5th and Michael Conforto is back in the lineup, and you know what, by all intents and purposes, if they wanted to rush it, he probably could have played opening day. It really is almost a minor miracle for everything that has befallen the Mets over the last couple of seasons. So again, if you're a Met fan, you are thrilled in so many ways, and you got to be jacked for this game. This is as big, this is as important a game on April the 5th of a baseball season. What are they, 4-1, so the 6th game? This is as big a 6th game of the baseball season as you could drum up if you are a Met fan. So we'll get it going here in a couple of minutes, and we'll keep you posted over the next couple of hours. And I expect them to go out there and play a good game. And the big takeaway for me with the Mets here over the first handful of games, more than anything else, is what about the performance of this bullpen? You know, I know Familia makes you sweat a little bit there in the 9th, and that's just his M.O. That's never going to go away. All right, there was only one Mariano Rivera, and his name is not Jeurys Familia. We can agree on that. But there's other guys in this pen, whether it be Seth Lugo, whether it be Robert Gesellman, you know, guys who have not complained that they didn't end up in the starting rotation. You know, guys who have just went out there and let their pitching do the talking. So think about if you're Mickey Callaway, if you have Seth Lugo and Robert Gesellman part of this bullpen for the season, and you have those guys as weapons, and more importantly, because they're starters, and their arms are stretched out to a certain degree, you, if you're Mickey Callaway, can go to these guys for multiple innings. You don't have to restrict them to just 3 outs and get out of there. So you really like the depth early on of this pen, and let's see if they can keep it going. Even a guy who is like public enemy number 1, if you're a Met fan, Hansel Robles, has actually been pretty good thus far. And I mean, it was every Mets fan's nightmare when they saw the news a couple of days ago that Swarzak's going on the DL and Hansel Robles is going to be the guy summoned up from AAA. Well, guess what? Hansel Robles hasn't been that bad. Now, you keep your fingers crossed, you take it with a grain of salt, all those things, because you know what? Every time I see that guy out on the mound, it scares the heck out of me. And I'm waiting for a 500-foot moonshot to come off the bat of whatever player is standing in that batter's box and Hansel Robles to point his stupid finger into the air as if it's, a routine fly ball to center field and it ends up, 5 miles away. That day is probably coming. So I'm jacked up for this Mets game today, and we'll keep you posted here over the next couple of hours as to how they're doing down there, try to spoil the Nationals home opener against a team that you figure they're going to be in a dogfight with all season long when talking about the team from D.C. As far as the Yankees go, they'll be back at it tonight at the stadium against the Baltimore Orioles, starting off a new series. And you got to like where the Bombers are right now, shaking off those couple of losses to the Toronto Blue Jays over a weekend, coming back in just, god-awful conditions. And look, I commend each and every person who went out to the ballpark, whether it was at Citi Field or whether it was at Yankee Stadium the last couple of days, and sat out there and watched a baseball game. Because you really need to be commended. Full disclosure, I went out to Citi Field yesterday, and I used my press pass. And I sat in the press box. So I didn't have to be subjected to the elements. But I'll tell you something, just even walking in and out of the stadium yesterday, and when I got down onto the concourse, for example, on the field level, that wind was whipping I felt like I was at old Giant Stadium watching a football game in late December. It was freezing. Not to mention the fact that you had the rain and all the other elements playing a role over at Yankee Stadium in the last couple of days. So anybody that goes out there and braves that type of weather, I think you got a little bit of a screw loose. That's number one. But on the other hand, you should be commended because this is not baseball weather. And it's even a little chilly out there today. When is this finally going to pass? What can we do to finally get springtime around here? Can we do anything at all just to make it feel like baseball weather in these parts? And tonight, of course, the Yankees are going to have the first of the 6:30 starts that they're experimenting with this year on several weeknights. So we'll see how that goes and what it does for attendance. I understand that they want to get games over with a little bit earlier on at night, and especially when the weather isn't so good, you don't want to have people sitting out there all night long. So if you could do it at 6:30 when, you start the game then, still a little bit light out, maybe you get a little bit more conducive baseball climate and baseball atmosphere. That's what they're gunning for, and so they got the first one tonight against the Baltimore Orioles to give the ball to Tanaka. Yesterday, though, you caught a little bit of a glimpse as to what this Yankee team is going to be about this year. Not that it took you by surprise, not that it, should be anything that catches you off guard. When you see Stanton, when you see Judge, when you see Sanchez all go deep in the first game, that's just got to make you giddy if you're a Yankee fan. That's almost a look-see into what we can expect to have happen the rest of the year, right? Murderers Row, the Bronx Bombers, these guys just mashing baseballs. That's what you want to see all summer long. That's going to be the strength of the New York Yankees. But ironically enough, their power might be their strength, but that might not be the key as to just how far they're going to go in the month of October and possibly winning a World Series. We all know that that's going to have to come down to the pitching. And I'm talking about the starters, and I'm talking about the bullpen. The bullpen, of course, has to do what we expect them to do. All right, that is a weapon for this baseball team. If they can hold up their end, it'll be interesting to see if they can piece it all together with the rotation. But you also know that once July rolls around and the trade deadline, the Yankees have enough flexibility and they have the financial wherewithal for Brian Cashman to pick up the phone and be able to go out there and acquire a starting pitcher if need be. And I'll tell you something right now. I would be surprised if they don't go that route, because I don't know if this pitching is going to be able to hold up throughout the course of a long season. Now, you look at Luis Severino and what he's done the first couple of times out here for the Yankees, you got to be thrilled. You got to love it. And you sit here and you think, well, yeah, but he finished third in the Cy Young last year. Isn't this what we expect him to do? Well, yeah, kind of. But remember something. I always kind of put up the caution flag a little bit when you're talking about a player of Severino's ilk. Remember, young guy. Last year, career high in terms of workload and the innings. I'm always curious to see how a young player is going to respond and bounce back after being subjected to that many innings and that much wear and tear on his arms. How is that going to go the next year? And so far, so good in a couple of outings, right? And especially yesterday in just awful conditions. Awful. You shouldn't be playing baseball in that. Nobody should. So you like what you've seen out of Severino here at the very least. And back to the big bashers here for a second. Good to see Sanchez getting track, right? Guy came in with, an 0 for 17. Judge hadn't gone deep yet, but at least he was getting on base for you, so he was still productive in that sense, especially in the sabermetric world, which we all seem to subscribe to now. And Stanton made it known, you know what? I'm going to strike out a lot. I'm going to have my rough moments. I'm a boomer bust guy. Sanchez isn't going to be, Giancarlo Stanton's not a high average guy. He's a home run hitter. He's a power hitter. So you're going to see a lot of strikeouts. Even the one he hit yesterday to the moon. To the moon. I mean, that thing is still going. Even that was followed by some strikeouts. That's just who Giancarlo Stanton is. But I think that he passed his first early crisis, if you will. His first little mini test as a member of the New York Yankees. And more importantly, as a superstar athlete in this market. Which, unfortunately, has gotten the best of some of the best players who've ever really come to this city and play. Because you know what? When you come to New York, you're on the biggest stage. You come to New York, you're doing it with more eyeballs watching than anybody else. There's more fans, there's more media, there's more attention. That's why it's the Big Apple, right? That's why it's Broadway. The lights are the brightest. And think about just in baseball alone. Mike Piazza's in the Hall of Fame. Mike Piazza's a beloved New York Met. Remember when Mike Piazza was traded over here? And he really did not just hit the ground running, so to speak. And it was a rough go for him. He was booed. He had a rough early tenure as a member of the New York Mets. Tino Martinez doesn't have to buy a meal in New York City anymore. Guy's beloved. Anytime he walks into Yankee Stadium, he gets some of the loudest ovations compared to anybody else. But Tino Martinez came here to replace a legend in Don Mattingly at first base, and they didn't embrace Tino right off the bat. So athletes have these moments that, you know what, they're going to have to get over. Fans are just not automatically going to say, oh, because you won an MVP elsewhere, oh, because you hit 50, 60 home runs wearing another uniform, it doesn't mean you're going to waltz right into my city and you're going to get a clean slate. It doesn't work that way. We expect you in New York to go out there and do the same type of thing that you did when you wore another uniform in another city. When Giancarlo Stanton came into New York and played in Citi Field and he was hitting home runs left and right and, the balls were landed in those old chop shops across the street from Citi Field, Yankee fans expect him to do the same thing now that he's wearing wearing the pinstripes. That's what you expect him to do. And he'll be fine. He'll be absolutely fine. You do not have to worry about a guy like Giancarlo Stanton. Or Aaron Judge or even Gary Sanchez. Yanks will be fine here. If that pitching stays healthy, if they stay in one piece, they'll be in good shape. I mean, I was laughing a couple of days ago. Even that game where Stanton struck out 5 times. That's all that anybody wanted to talk about. Oh, he struck out 5 times. Oh, my goodness. The sky is falling. This guy's going to be a bust. He's going to bat .220 this year. He's only going to hit 25 home runs. Oh, Stanton can't handle New York. You realize in that game, lost in it all was the fact that the Yankees scored 11 runs, right? I mean, we shouldn't forget about that. They scored 11 runs in a game where Giancarlo Stanton struck out 5 times. Because you have guys like Didi Gregorius, who would be superstars in their own right on any other team. But because of all the star power on this Yankee squad, they're just guys that kind of retreat into the background a little bit. Even though they're just as important as any other guy that you mention on this Yankee baseball team. Really, really, really stacked with talent. And they're going to have a fun year. So as we said, we got Yankee baseball tonight at 6:30. Mets in D.C. here. They went quietly in the first inning. Strasburg, a couple of Ks, including Conforto. So we'll see if DeGrom is up to the task of matching Strasburg today, inning for inning, in a nice duel in a nice weather day in D.C. Although I did hear, and I haven't checked it lately, somebody was telling me yesterday that I guess in D.C. this weekend they're expecting like 7-8 inches of snow or something like that. And I saw that we were here too, but then when I checked the weather for this weekend, it kind of went away, which is good. I mean, that's the last thing I want to do is be shoveling snow in the first week of April. That's not supposed to happen. Imagine if, the Mets get snowed out in D.C. Are we going to have to actually deal with something like that? I mean, enough is enough. Gosh, give me some better weather. Did you guys watch that game yesterday? Talking about the Met game. Did you watch the game? Did you get all Facebook engaged? Did you go there? Now, full disclosure, I'm going to say it. Not a Facebook guy. Not a Facebook guy at all. Never joined up. Don't have an account. Really don't know the ins and outs of it. All right, I was one of those holdouts. I just didn't go there. Didn't go there. Do Twitter, and I was a late arrival to that, but I'm into that. And you can find me at Dan Graca, by the way, Graca. So the Facebook thing certainly got a lot of talk up yesterday. All right. I told you I was at the ballpark yesterday, sitting in the press box. They had it on in the press box on the monitors. And the one thing that stood out, I think, more than anything else was the little score bug. It took up half the screen. Did it have to be that big? That's number one. I can't sit here and give you an accurate read on the commentary. I can't sit here and tell you whether the announcers were good or not. I know my boy Cliff Floyd was doing the game. Saw him beforehand. One of the best. Okay? But you could say that this is the wave of the future. You could say that this is how we're going to watch games and how we're going to, consume our media and consume our information and all that stuff. I don't entirely believe that's true. I really and truly don't. I understand that we live in a digital age right now, and we want immediate access and we want immediate consumption for whatever it is that we want. And that's why we all have our tablets and we all have our smartphones. And most of the time, we're getting information right at our fingertips before it ever ends up on TV. And I don't even should I even bring up a newspaper? Do people even read newspapers anymore? I don't even know. But we're so conditioned now just to getting everything now, to getting everything 5 minutes ago, right? We want it now, and now. But why Facebook? Right? Like, why is that the venture that we should be consuming sports? Remember when the NFL had that deal with Twitter for Thursday Night Football? That kind of made sense. Because if I remember right from when the NFL had the Thursday games on the Twitter, you didn't even have to log in, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like if you just went to the Twitter homepage and you went, twitter.com, you popped it up, boom. I don't even think you needed an account. You didn't even have to sign in because they had the game streaming for you right there. And all you had to do was click your screen and then boom, it was right there. That makes sense, right? There's nothing wrong with that. And I don't know how many people are that up to snuff on what you need to expect from Facebook and what you're getting from Facebook. I really don't. And it's not necessarily an age thing. Because I'll be honest with you, I'm not a senior citizen by any stretch of the imagination. I can still consider myself rather youthful, but I don't do Facebook. I couldn't tell you the first thing about it. Not at the very least. So what about some older folks who are maybe sitting there saying, I want to watch the Met game. How do I make this happen? And they may not even know what Facebook is. They may not use Facebook. Who knows? And something that somebody has to help me out with here. All I've heard the last couple of days, when people are just outraged over this whole episode, is that Facebook is dying and Facebook is falling by the wayside. Is that true? Why is it dying? Is Facebook now becoming like going to go the way of MySpace or something like that? Is that why Facebook is dying? Is that why it's not the future? Well, then what is the future? Seriously, what is I don't even know. What's so bad? Ray, why is Facebook dying? Do you have an answer for this?
I feel like we go down a political route if we did that, bitch, because Facebook's in the news for certain things. But I mean, otherwise, I just feel like the older generation flocked to Facebook and sort of made it in a way uncool for the younger generation.
So old people are on Facebook.
Older people.
Older people are on Facebook. So it's not cool for the millennials anymore. Because their parents, their grandparents are on Facebook now, so they can't be seen in the same space with them. That's basically what it is, right? You can't. So if you're a millennial, you're a youngster, you can't go anywhere where your parents are because it's not cool. So now Facebook also falls into that category. That God forbid I'm on Facebook or seen on Facebook because my mother might like something.
I mean, you can see that, right? I mean, not only your mother likes something, but your mother or your aunt comments, "Hey, sweetie, love you. You haven't called your aunt lately."
Well, yes,
something like that.
That could be that's a problem. But how does that then pertain to what Major League Baseball's trying? Look, I get what Major League Baseball's trying to do. Okay, I get it. But here's the problem with it, though. What type of games are we talking about, anyways? All right. Think about even what we saw yesterday with Mets-Phillies. It was the 5th game of the season. It was a Wednesday afternoon. It was not going to be a packed house yesterday at Citi Field, even if the temperatures were great. Even if it was, 75 degrees and sunny, they weren't going to sell that thing out. People got to go to work. People have things to do. People have lives. So you figure, all right, I'm sitting in my office. If I have the luxury of being on a computer, I'm going to sit there and log into Facebook and then boom, watch the Mets from there. Maybe sneak a few looks in while my boss isn't watching. Yeah, that's one way you can go. But most people, if you are a baseball fan and if you are engaged and you want to watch your team, doesn't everybody, or at least most people, aren't you having your favorite sports app, whatever it might be, whether it's ESPN, whether it's the MLB app, which is fantastic, by the way. You watch the entire game on your app that way, or watch the game on the phone there. You don't need Facebook. You know, if I want to watch a baseball game and I'm out and about or I'm on the move or, you know, I'm sitting at work on that's what the internet is for. That's what these websites are for. That's what my subscription is for to, you know, MLB, for example. And realistically speaking, what type of game are you talking about? As I said, these also fall into the allotment of the so-called national TV games that each team and each network is possibly going to be subjected to. So you probably are not, if you're a Yankee fan, you're probably not going to see the Yankees on Facebook a whole heck of a lot because each team is only allowed X amount of games on the national TV platforms, whether that's Fox, whether that's ESPN, whether that's what is it, MLB Network? I'm trying to think of all the stations here nationally that carry baseball. So you figure the Yankee games, because they're an attractive team, because they have stars, because they're good, they're going to be eaten up by some of those other more visible platforms, not Facebook. And it's not to say that the Mets aren't any good, but I think that this was a trial run more than anything else. It was an early season game. It was during the week. So they said, why not? Let's roll the dice. That's why they haven't made the schedule yet for the entire season. But I guarantee you, the majority of games that you could probably expect to see on this Facebook platform later on in the season, you know, you're going to get a lot of Tigers-A's games, for example. You know, you're going to get a lot of Cincinnati Reds, San Diego Padres. You know, they're going to be like Facebook's official team because they're not any good. And they know that those teams generally are not going to have a prayer of being on Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN, for example. You know, and this Facebook thing, it's not like Thursday Night Football. Thursday Night Football, everybody has to do it at least once. That's the penalty that the NFL wants to give off, especially if you're not a fan of Thursday games. You know, everybody complains about it. At least the teams do, the players, the coaches. So they say, all right, just to make it fair, each and every single team has to play on Thursday night at least once. It's not going to be the case here for baseball with these Facebook games. It's not. You may go an entire season and not have to be subjected to a game on Facebook. So if you're a Yankee fan, you know what? You keep your fingers crossed. Maybe you don't have to deal with this. And oh, by the way, there is this thing, I've heard that it's still pretty effective and it's still pretty popular, and I'm also extremely biased when I say this, but I hear that the radio experience is still pretty damn good. It's still pretty damn good. Who doesn't like to listen to a baseball game on the radio? I know I do. I'm curious as to what your thoughts, your experience was, if you dove into the whole Facebook Mets episode yesterday. I want to hear from you. 800-919-3776. Mets are playing in D.C. right now. They're down 1-0 in the top of the second. DeGrom gave up a couple of hits to start the game, and it looks as if Jay Bruce just missed the game-tying home run and hit off the top of the wall, so he slides into second with a double. So the Mets have something cooking off of Steven Strasburg here in the second as they try to draw even. We'll talk a little more about the Facebook, the baseball thing. Got to get into the NFL. I don't know if you know this. You better know it if you're a good football fan. The draft is only 3 weeks away. 3 weeks from today. Giants picking 2, Jets picking 3. For now. Subject still to change. I don't know how likely that is, but we could certainly dive into the possibilities. Are you a little bit more secure as a Giants fan now, in light of recent events in the NFL, i.e. the Rams-Patriots trade with Brandon Cooks, that Odell Beckham Jr. is now going to be a New York Giant? Once September rolls around in the season and you're going to see number 13 run out of the tunnel at MetLife Stadium wearing a blue jersey. Got to get into all those things. And we got a few days left in the NBA season where if you're a Knicks fan, okay, there is still very much a lot at stake for you. Because there's some other teams in the NBA who are cooperating right now and are playing some inspired basketball down the stretch. And maybe, just maybe, increasing the Knicks' chances when it comes to ping pong balls and the lottery, and more importantly, securing their future. We got a lot to cram into the next couple of hours. We're rolling till 3, then it's the Michael K. Show. It's Dan Graca in for Stephen A. It's 98.7 ESPN.
Craving even more of Stephen A?
Him of all people.
For around-the-clock access to the man?
I'm Stephen A.
You can follow him on Twitter and Instagram at Stephen A. Smith and on Facebook at Stephen A.
Remember, you can tweet at me at Dan Graca, Graca. Mets and Nats in an entertaining affair here. They're in the, what is this now? I think the 4th inning in D.C., and the Mets have just evened up the game again at 2 as Yoenis Cespedes hits one. I think it landed in the front lawn of the White House, as a matter of fact, off of Steven Strasburg to knot up the game. And, you know, I didn't bring it up in the open, but I'll say it now. To me, there was no reason why Ahmed Rosario was not in the lineup again today for the New York Mets. After what he did yesterday at the plate, you know, he's still very much a young player, a big part of this team's future and present, let's be honest. I mean, if Rosario comes into his own, you talk about another level this team can get to this year. So he has a good day at the plate yesterday. I know that Steven Strasburg is a right-hander and he's on the mound today for Washington. So I guess Mickey Callaway decided to give Jose Reyes a turn today because he's a switch hitter. And Mets had an opportunity to nail Adam Eaton at the plate on a relay throw from Yoenis Cespedes in left, who's got a really, really strong arm, of course, and made a perfect relay throw. And Reyes' relay to the plate was just absolutely atrocious. And Eaton walked into the dugout. I mean, Reyes threw the ball like halfway up the first baseline. Strange decision, but we'll see. Mets are still in the game, though. It's 2-2 in the 4th inning. We're talking football, though. And we got to get into some NBA before the hour is through as well. But as far as this draft is concerned right now, yeah, I guess there's still a chance that the Giants get blown away with a trade offer and they move out of that number 2 slot. There's still a decent shot at it. But from everything that we're hearing, the quarterback that they love is Sam Darnold. And if you believe recent reports, again, Peter King had something earlier in the week that he spoke to somebody who is well in line with the thinking of John Dorsey, who's the Browns GM, and of course the Browns sitting there at number 1. And he seems to think that Josh Allen is going to be the pick for Cleveland with the first pick. So if that's the case, then you're going to have Sam Darnold, who will be sitting there for the Giants at number 2. And all this time, I didn't necessarily think that the Giants were going to be locked in with a quarterback at that second spot. I really did not think so. And especially if they're going to keep Odell Beckham around now, you're still kind of in a way, even though that, you know, you're changing things around a little bit, you're moving around the furniture, just freshening up the building. If you got a veteran quarterback in Eli Manning, who maybe only has a couple of years left, and you're going to keep one of his top, if not the top, of course, playmaker in Odell, why would you then be trying to take a quarterback who may not play for a couple of years? Wouldn't you still try to win with the veteran quarterback that you have right now? So then you start to think that, well, maybe a Saquon Barkley might be the option. And I know that, again, God forbid you take a quarterback, or you take a running back that high in the draft at number 2. But we have seen some teams in the last few years. I mean, Ezekiel Elliott with the Cowboys, Leonard Fournette with the Jacksonville Jaguars last year. Even if you want to go to Todd Gurley a couple of years back with the Rams, you know, look at the progress that they've made with that program of late. I mean, think about this right now. You know, why is it the worst thing in the world if you do running back? If he's a good player, you take him. And I still think of the taboo from back in the 90s about Penn State running backs and all those guys that just never panned out, whether it's Blair Thomas, whether it's Kajana Carter, whether it's Curtis Enos, on and on and on and on. You know, but I think that doesn't apply to this guy. Is Saquon Barkley going to be a good pro? Yeah, I think so. I really believe it. Is he worth the number 2 pick in the draft? You heard Dave Gettleman say it. You take a guy at number 2, regardless of the position he plays, you want that guy to one day be sporting a gold jacket, which means the Hall of Fame, right? That's what you want to see from this guy. So if it's a running back, what's the difference, right? If Saquon Barkley becomes the next stud running back in this league and you got a chance sitting there taking him at number 2, you turn in the card. I'll ask you this question. Is there a better chance, and feel free to weigh in at 800-919-3776, is there a better chance that Saquon Barkley becomes a top-flight running back in the NFL, Or is there a better chance that Sam Darnold becomes a top-flight quarterback as a pro? Because if you think that Barkley is going to be more dynamic and more of a game changer at his position than Darnold will be for him or for his, then I don't know how you don't pull the trigger. I understand a quarterback is more important. I get it. But if you're just taking a guy who's going to be okay, who's just going to be so-so, who's going to be nothing more than a glorified game manager, and I don't know, that might be the case, it might not be the case. I like Sam Darnold. If I had my druthers and I was sitting there and I had one quarterback that I could write in and turn in the card, for me it's going to be Darnold. And I got more to say on Josh Allen too, which I'll get to in a second. But you need to hit a home run. I agree with Dave Gettleman completely. And if you're Mike McCagnon, now you're sitting there at number 3. The onus is on you as well. You got to hit a home run. Jets, of course, are locked into a quarterback. I mean, unless the Jets pull the rug out from underneath all of us, Jets are taking a quarterback with that third pick because they need one. And that is a guy who also does not need to come in and play right away. Unless he just absolutely wows everybody from the moment he lands in Florham Park, whether that's Josh Allen, whether that's Josh Rosen, Sam Darnold, and even our pal Baker Mayfield. And I don't know if the Baker Mayfield stuff is a smokescreen or not. I really don't. Because, look, we're still 3 weeks away from the draft, and my God, I wish it gets here, like, ASAP. I can't wait for the draft. But you're hearing all these things now that, boy, the Jets really like Baker Mayfield. Yeah, but I know that Baker Mayfield is not your prototypical 6'4", 6'5" quarterback who's going to stand in the pocket all day and just sling the ball all over the yard. Yeah, I get it, but you know what? There's a lot of guys in the NFL now who aren't like that. Russell Wilson isn't like that, right? Drew Brees is, he's a pocket passer, but he's not 6'4", 6'5". This is a new era in the NFL. You don't look at the quarterback the same way you did years and years ago, where you just looked for a guy who was just the epitome of what the franchise quarterback was supposed to be. That's why Ryan Leaf was the second pick in the draft, because Ryan Leaf was a beast. He was, 6'5", 6'6". He could throw the ball, from here to South America if he had to. That's not the way the NFL is anymore. Look at the schemes. Look at the offense. Okay, look at all these college elements that have been sprinkled in here over the last couple of seasons. The intricacies, the factor of the screen game, how effective that has become and how prevalent that has become in offenses in the NFL now, where you have so many multi-dimensional players on your offense, whether it be, the scat backs or the slot receivers and guys that you can just find roles for in the offense, find ways to get the ball in their hands so they can make plays, right? There are home run hitters out there all over the place now in the draft. That is apparent. And that leads me to Josh Allen for a second. Josh Allen, by all accounts, has the best arm in the draft, okay, of all these quarterbacks. The best arm. Does that stand for something? Absolutely it does, for sure. You like the fact that Josh Allen was a guy who has had exposure to playing in horrible weather. Of course, when you play in Wyoming, you're going to be challenged with the elements. But I know that Josh Allen's completion percentage is not where you would like it to be. And a lot of people are critical of that. And they're saying, well, wait a sec. If this is a guy who is supposed to be one of the top picks in the draft, and he's only completing about 50% of his passes in the college game, what the heck is going to happen when he goes to the NFL and he's facing better competition and he's going to be expected to deliver the football? Mark Sanchez had a problem when it came to completing passes in the NFL. That was one of his many downfalls as to why things didn't work out for him ultimately with the New York Jets. And look, I'm a stickler of it as anybody else. Okay, I want my quarterback out there completing over 60% of his passes on Sundays in the NFL. You're darn right I do. But remember something about Josh Allen. Josh Allen did not play in an offense in college like some of these other quarterbacks did. All right? The screen game, for example, was not as big a feature in Josh Allen's offense at Wyoming as it was with some of these other guys. You know what screens are? They're high percentage throws. So naturally, your completion percentage is going to be sky high. You remember back to when Chad Pennington was the Jet quarterback? And I loved Chad Pennington. I loved Chad Pennington. Oh, my goodness. If they could just get that guy healthy shoulders, I mean, who knows what he would have become? Who knows where that football team would have gone? In all seriousness, the guy's career was robbed by injuries. He couldn't stay healthy. But Chad Pennington had a huge quarterback rating every year. Chad Pennington had a high completion percentage every year. You know why? A lot of safe throws, a lot of the play action fakes, a lot of the screens, Wasn't really taking shots down the field vertically. Most of his throws were short to intermediate throws. And those are why your completion percentage was always going to be high. That wasn't the offense Josh Allen was running in Wyoming. They tried to take advantage of his arm. And they said, Josh, throw the ball down the field. Take your shots. I also have guys who I know who are college guys, scouts. They've gone back and watched the tape of a lot of Josh Allen games at Wyoming. And remember, they didn't have a very good year this past year. And they'll tell you point blank, boy, so many drop throws, so many drop passes. Those you don't blame on the quarterback. You know, those are throws that a receiver needs to corral. You figure in the NFL, when you have NFL wide receivers, those catches are going to be made, those catches are going to be completed. He wasn't playing with as much talent as, let's say, a Baker Mayfield was playing with at Oklahoma, that a Sam Darnold was playing with at Southern Cal, even a Josh Rosen at UCLA. Okay, it's Wyoming. If those guys were really, 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 really good, they probably would have been recruited to go play someplace else. So my point is this. Just don't be fooled necessarily by what a guy does with completion percentage here in college. I don't think that's fair. And it'll be fascinating here because even though we're down to the final 3 weeks, we'll probably hear about 15 different leads between now and then about the Giants like this guy over that guy. The Jets are in love with this quarterback over this quarterback. I just wish it was here already. 800-919-3776. Let's get some phone calls up here. Ben is in Connecticut. Ben, you're going to start us off hour 2 here on 98.7. How are you?
Hey, Dan. Wow, you are rapid fire today. And I really loved your point about is Darnold, the pick versus Saquon, and who's going to help you more immediately. And it's confusing, and it makes it very interesting. But I'd like to know what you really think. I think when Gettleman came back to the Giants, the first thing that came out about him was he wanted to stock up on the hog mollies.
Yep.
And you got to believe in your heart of hearts that that's what Eli Manning needs more than anything. And you can plug a running back in, and I don't care where you get him from, but if you don't have those guys up front, it's just not going to work out. So that's something I'd like to hear you talk a little bit more about on the offensive line. And who do you think would be maybe a target, with consideration that Nelson's probably not going to be there if they trade down?
Well, it depends. See, the thing about it, though, Ben, is it depends how far they do trade down. Like, for example, if they swing a deal with the Denver Broncos at number 5, and if Denver jumps all the way up to 2 because they want to get their hands on one of these quarterbacks, maybe a guy like Josh Allen, who, is right around the corner there in Wyoming from where the Broncos are, right? Quentin Nelson might be there for the Giants at number 5, if that's the guy they truly covet, and that's the guy they truly want. And they've already gone out there and signed a couple of players here in the offseason, of course, led by Nate Solder, who, look, Nate Solder's a nice player, all right? Nate Solder, compared to who the Giants had there, compared to Eric Flowers playing left tackle, Nate Solder is Anthony freaking Munoz. Okay, you take that and then some. But when you pay a guy like Nate Solder what they paid him, and didn't they make him like the highest paid offensive lineman in the NFL or something like that? He's not the best offensive lineman in the NFL, but the Giants were desperate, and they had no other choice. So that's an upgrade. The kid they signed from Jacksonville, Omame, or however you pronounce his name, okay, that will help. And I'm sure that they're not going to go throughout this entire draft without bringing in another offensive lineman. Remember, Dave Gettleman has found Pro Bowlers, has found all pros from back in Carolina that he found in the 3rd and the 4th round. So you know that he's going to be digging for talent on the offensive line because it all starts up front. It's an old saying. It's a simple saying. It all starts up front. And, this might not be popular. I'm still going to say it. And I'm going to say it until the guy's not playing anymore. You can still win with Eli Manning. Okay? Point blank. You can win with Eli Manning. Guy won 11 games a couple of years ago. 11 games a couple of years ago. Last year was an unmitigated disaster all around with the franchise. And he got swept up in it. They've cleaned house. They fine-tuned some things. Eli is not your problem when you're making a list of the biggest things that ail the New York Giants. Just not. Sam and Wayne up next. Sam, you're on 98.7. How are you?
Good. How are you today?
What's up, Sam?
I just want to make a point about the Giants draft strategy and what I think they should do. I think, to be honest with you, just because they're at the number 2 pick, I feel like people think they have to take a quarterback. But you can argue that running back is an even bigger need than quarterback at this point because we don't even know what Davis Webb is as of yet. I mean, I think he deserves his shot, especially under Shermer and being mentored under Eli for the next couple of years. And in my opinion, if the best player in your draft, in the whole draft, fills a need, and he's right there for you at number 2, you have to take Barkley. Just because if you pair Beckham and Barkley together for the next 3 or 4 years, assuming they sign Odell, then, you could extend Eli's career and he could be a serviceable quarterback for the next, couple of seasons. And then you see what you have with Webb. If he stinks next year, then you go ahead and you proceed with planning to draft a quarterback. But as of right now, I think Eli has enough left in the tank.
Sam, let me ask you a question, okay? And I'm glad you brought up Davis Webb because I didn't yet, okay? But I'll ask it this way. If you're the New York Giants, and again, Dave Gettleman, Pat Shermer, they did not draft Davis Webb. They did not bring him to New York, okay? They were both elsewhere last year for the draft, doing their homework for other teams and evaluating Davis Webb when they were still employed by other teams. I don't know what they truly felt about Davis Webb coming into the draft last year. I don't know. They haven't said that yet. Here's the other thing, though. And I know, unfortunately, he didn't get a chance to play last year for the Giants, so they don't have game tape, at least regular season game tape, to evaluate. But whatever opinion they do have of him up until this point, do you think that they're going to share that publicly with the media, with anybody around NFL circles, especially before the NFL draft? Because don't you think their opinion of Davis Webb is going to potentially influence what they do at that number 2 pick, whether it's bringing a quarterback or not that high?
Well, I know they are bringing in a couple quarterbacks this upcoming weekend for,
Well, I mean, that's doing their diligence. I'm just talking about when I say bring in, I mean literally draft a guy at number 2.
Well, they're actually a week before the draft. I heard they're actually going to hold like a pro day style, pro day style drills for Davis Webb just to see, and analyze his flaws more. And if they find that he has at least enough potential for Shermer to work with for the next couple of years, I don't see why you don't give him his chance. I mean, a 3rd-round pick is not that, it's not like he's a 6th or 7th-round pick. He deserves his chance like every other quarterback that recently came out of the 3rd round. At least, somewhat of a chance to compete. And, I think you just have to take the best player in the draft if he falls in your lap, fills a huge need that we haven't had in years. And, you see what he has and you proceed with Eli for the next couple of years. I'm not saying they're going to win a Super Bowl, but at least try to make a playoff run as best you can with Barkley, Beckham, Ingram, Shepard, and then Eli throwing all those weapons. I think they could be potentially dangerous. So, that's my opinion on the situation.
Yeah, Sam, I don't and I thank you for the phone call. I don't look, when I look at the Giants right now, I still think they're closer to getting back to the playoffs than the Jets are. Right? And the Giants had a worse season. Right? The Giants had the worst record last year. Giants are picking 2nd. Jets weren't picking 2nd. And the least of the Giants' problems right now is, I think, the quarterback. Now, if you're asking me in 5 years from now, that's a different story. But for 2018, I don't think quarterback is at the top of the list or at or near the top of the list of things the Giants have to fix if they want to have a good season once the fall hits. I really don't believe that. Eli is the least of your problems right now. What did we just see in February, too? At the Super Bowl in Minnesota. Eagles won a Super Bowl. Right? They won a Super Bowl. See who their quarterback was? Remember where he got drafted? Dude got drafted in the 3rd round. Nick Foles was almost out of football. This time last year, when you and I were sitting down doing a radio show here, and we were bringing up quarterback solutions in and around the National Football League, Nick Foles' name was not being thrown out there by anybody, at least anybody of sane mind, as to, I got to go get that guy because he's going to make my team a winner. Nobody was. He was the forgotten man. But he was the Super Bowl MVP because he had a hell of a football team around him. And that's what it all comes back to. You got a good team? You're darn right you can win with an Eli Manning because you know what? He's done it twice already. I'm not saying the Giants are winning the Super Bowl this year, but the guy knows how to win. Give him some talent. Kevin in Hillsborough. Kevin, you're on 98.7. How you doing?
How are you doing today?
Good, Kev. What's up?
Listen, I think Saquon Barkley is more of a sure thing in this draft than any other quarterbacks that are out there. You know, he's talented on offense. He can catch the ball at the backfield. And as you said, Eli Manning is not the problem with the New York Giants. And this is coming from a Cowboys fan. You know, people say this league is not a running backs league. But I will tell you, Ezekiel Elliott, when he was suspended, the Cowboys were a much different team. And that's a team with a phenomenal offensive line. But I think Saquon Barkley helps the Giants immeasurably than Sam Darnold or anybody else if they can get a quarterback there. It will definitely help the Giants.
If Saquon Barkley is what Saquon Barkley we think he's going to be, Kevin, how could you disagree? How could I disagree with you? Ray Santiago, my dear friend, part of this program, who is as diehard a Dallas Cowboy fan, he loves the Cowboys more than Jerry Jones does. Jerry Jones in it for business, too, not Ray. Okay? Ask him firsthand. Ezekiel Elliott, where would have they been a couple of years ago without Zeke? Why do you think one of the reasons why the Cowboys had such a disappointing season last year? Because there was no Zeke. Isn't that right, Ray?
It definitely was a factor. Those 6 games hurt a lot. I will also say, though, that they were missing their best defensive player in Sean Lee for much of the season, and Tyron Smith was a mess in the second half.
And you mentioned Tyron Smith in your offensive line. My point. That also factors in. Running game, stud back, O-line. Things Gettleman is looking to beef up.
It all works together. People say that Zeke wouldn't be the same without that Dallas offensive line. Well, that Dallas offensive line wouldn't be the same without Zeke.
Absolutely.
They fit together.
Absolutely. The Michael Conforto comeback show is getting rave reviews. Rave reviews. They are now looking at video replay to see if the shot that Conforto just hit was indeed a 2-run home run or not. And unless these eyes deceive me, it looks like it landed in that little flower bed and then bounced back out onto the field. I think that's going to be a 2-run dinger for the Metsies, and they should have a 4-2 lead on Strasburg and the Nats. And the verdict is about to come through, and it is a home run. 4-2 Metropolitans. Welcome back, Michael Conforto. Graca to the top in for Stephen A.